Now, let's talk about the deal, which may or may not be being agreed with the EU. Lots of people think that people like you are comfortable with no deal and wonder how serious these negotiations are. The Prime Minister says he can see the landing area. Would you, Dominic Raab, be comfortable with a situation going forward where Northern Ireland was treated differently in regard to EU regulations and taxes and so forth from the rest of the United Kingdom?
Well, first of all, I've always been in favour of a deal, and I'm confident that there's a deal to be done. There were good meetings this week. The Prime Minister met with Jean-Claude Juncker, and he said that a deal is there to be done, that he wants a deal. So I think that was positive. There have always been naysayers on both sides of the channel in relation to this process, and we hear from them every time the proposals are teased out into the public. But we've made good progress, and I think what's necessary now is for the EU to match some of the words that we heard from Jean-Claude Juncker with the detailed negotiations to remove the undemocratic backstop, to be clear we can transition to a best-in-class free trade agreement. And I think that would be good for the UK, but also the EU.
I refer you back. I'm sorry, Mr. Raab, but I refer you back to my original question. Would you be comfortable with Northern Ireland being treated differently in regard to customs and regulations than the rest of the UK, or not?
I think as a general overarching across all the rules, no, of course that'd be wrong. And indeed, one of the reasons why I resigned over the previous withdrawal agreement is because I felt it threatened the position of Northern Ireland, and indeed under the Good Friday Agreement. It's well known that we're going to continue talking with our EU partners and with
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, let me answer.
What you just said is very significant.
I want to answer it really squarely.
Okay,
so you'll know there's been discussions because the island of Ireland is already managed for agri-food on a common basis. That is something which, if it had the consent of the parties of Northern Ireland, we would be willing to discuss further with our EU partners.
Further.
Well, I think.
But no further.
I think the more you get into, the further you go, the more you put at risk the principle that there'll be no change in the status of Northern Ireland without the consent of the people of Northern Ireland. And fundamentally, that's democratically wrong, and I think will be a threat to the Good Friday Agreement that on all sides we want to preserve.
So no Northern Ireland only backstop.
Oh, no, there couldn't be a Northern Ireland only backstop in its entirety in the way it was proposed previously. But as I said, on agri-food and the question of the way the island of Ireland is already managed, that is something, a very discrete area, where of course we can continue talking, and we've made that clear. But it must have the consent of the parties of Northern Ireland.
A lot of senior officials from the UK and Northern Ireland have been speaking over the last few days in the Republic of Ireland about the horrific effect, in their view, that no deal would have on the Northern Irish economy. But if what you have just said is true, then we are a long, long way away from a deal, and time is fast running out.
No, I don't think so. I think there's a deal to be done in the European Council on the 17th of October. You're going to have people that will pour cold water on it. We had the Luxembourg Prime Minister trying to embarrass the Prime Minister. I think the people of this country have had enough of that nonsense. But in fairness, we also had Jean-Claude Juncker coming out and saying he'd had a very positive meeting at the same time in Luxembourg with the Prime Minister, and that there was a deal to be done, and that he wanted it to be done. If those words are matched with action and political will, I'm confident that we can have a deal. But what we can't do is just accept a series of requirements that either put a threat to the position of Northern Ireland or emasculate and undermine the referendum result, which is what the Liberal Democrats and the Labour Party seem all too willing to allow.